Postgame show. Sherrod, Zannis, we're doing a boomer show in honor of Joe Johnson. The kids didn't feel like showing up tonight. I think they're coming. Josue is at the Garden. Bobby is somewhere, but he's going to join us in a little bit. And we'll talk about. I don't know what to say about this game. There's plenty of good stuff to talk about, but I mean, you basically played. I mean, JV would be an overstatement for the team that you played with the Cavs tonight. You had a couple of players, but man, were they thin. I mean, and this is just what's happening in the NBA right now. So I guess you just got to kind of live with it. But still a positive win.
Absolutely. I mean, to me, for this team, any win is a positive win. But particularly when you can get a win, you can play a lot of different guys, and everyone leaves relatively, healthy. That's a win on every level. But obviously, for me, and I think for a lot of people, the story was just Joe Johnson and just Joe actually getting a chance to get out there on the floor, do what Joe Johnson does, which is get buckets. I feel, and I honestly, I feel like.
Oh, Garden Wi-Fi.
Garden Wi-Fi coming in, but Bobby's here. Sorry, lost you for a second. I do want to give props to Sherrod here as he's kind of unfreezing, and I think he's back with us now. Sherrod literally willed this into existence on the A-List podcast earlier this week. Just simply said, with what's going on around the league, someone's going to go out there and sign Joe Johnson. It's inevitable at this point.
He knew.
He knew something.
Joe Johnson is perfect for what's happening in the NBA right now. You need guys who have a clear and undeniable skill. Joe Johnson, literally in the 1 minute, 57 seconds he played, did exactly what Joe Johnson does.
Is he perfect for the Celtics, though?
This is who he is, always has been, always will be, the 45th greatest scorer in NBA history, which is saying a lot. I mean, only 44 guys have scored more points than him to have ever played in this league. Joe Johnson, he's just that dude.
So if the Celtics stay where they are right now, I'm fine with the signing. It's a nice publicity thing. It's full circle. It's part of the coolness of the story, Sherrod. Like, this is the only silver lining of the last week or two here. If they do lose more guys, though, and they actually end up needing these players, I think CJ Miles, those are like the worst signings you could make in terms of a guy that can come in right now and contribute. These guys haven't played in the NBA in years. Not only that, but it just goes completely against the approach I've wanted them to take, which is try out as many young players as possible. Just bring in guys that haven't worked in other locations. Justin Jackson is an example of this, which I actually liked. I don't think many of these guys are going to get chances anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But say Tatum goes down in protocol, knock on wood here, you're going to want someone that can actually step in and play the wing position. I'm just not sure Johnson can. That presser wasn't all that convincing, Sherrod. A 40-year-old saying, I'm in the best shape of my life. Like, all right, I guess we'll take it at your word.
Every time we've seen Joe Johnson, whether it's NBA, whether it's Big Three, whatever level, he gets buckets. I mean, that's just who he is. And again, to your point, Bobby, is this someone that you want to see out there for 15, 20 minutes a night? I don't think so. But if you are in a situation where, let's say, you're at the short end of a 17-4 run and you need someone in there to maybe kind of slow the bleeding down a little bit, Joe Johnson is that kind of guy. He can get you like 4 or 5 points in a very short period of time, and then you get his ass out of there because you know he's going to hurt you at the defensive end at some point.
Joe Johnson,
that's all I'm saying.
He's auditioning for the Jabari Parker role that Sherrod wanted, filled with the guy who can get you buckets,
I mean, it's fun. It is. Could they have brought back Isaiah? That would have been fun too. There were a lot of fun ways you could go with this, and I was throwing names out there all day as well as my followers. There's just something. Scal's on the list, but he's below Joe. I wonder if he's below Ime. I'm thinking like an Ime Scal 1-on-1 for the next hardship exemption would be appropriate. Have Aaron Miles or whoever else is on that staff, Ben Sullivan, step up and coach. And listen, Ime asked for it, Sherrod. He was like, I wanted this when I played. Well, here it is, just a little late. Seize the opportunity, Ime.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of good things. I mean, Joe
Damon
Johnson.
Stoudemire, that's the one, right? On the staff.
I think he can still play.
I've heard he's been
but
at practice lighting it up. He's playing in some scrimmages and actually scoring on some of these guys. So
I can see that.
he's at the top of the list in the coaching staff for sure. I think Ime's probably a little long out of the game.
No, Ime's
Yeah, I mean,
good.
he wasn't great when he played, so I don't know what he's.
Yeah, I mean, Ime was like Mr. Defense, versatility, all that. Ime wasn't getting buckets.
Yeah.
He played with Tim. You're not getting buckets
not.
playing with Tim.
Chauncey Billups, your guy, probably some potential there.
Yeah, no, Chauncey, no, he's good. We him and I had a conversation. No,
Ray Allen, he's always ready. It's been a few years though on his front.
Ray Allen would be an interesting one.
Do you think we're gonna get a crazy one like that? Sure,
I do. Someone is going to do it.
Guess, yeah.
Someone is going to take someone that you're going to be like, oh my god, I can't believe that dude is still alive.
But the guy has to still want to play. Like I think
everybody wants to play.
No, I think Ray Allen is golfing. I don't think Ray Allen's playing ball like on a like.
I think he's out because the league wanted him out.
Joe Johnson's playing friggin' every 3-on-3 and 5-on-5 and junior, and
Joe's a hooper.
Joe's playing competitive basketball at a lower level and has been for years. He shows up everywhere, so he's still in game shape. I believe it when he says he's in shape.
Cal's in the big three too, isn't he? Or is he a coach or something?
Yeah, he played. But
he's thinking about it. He's like, all right.
I was thinking he had it under the uniform, and you might get a Cantor goes down and just rips it off.
I wish Gorman asked him because it's somewhere in the noggin here. The thought of him making the comeback.
Yeah, no, it was what it was. But all right, let's try to take the game at face value and move the nonsense aside, which was the Joe Johnson signs, and it's great and it's fun. I
didn't think he'd get in the game. That was fun. I'm glad
Cleveland's missing everybody, so it's hard to judge this game. Celtics are basically playing a G League team, not quite, but they're playing a really, really, really depleted Cavs team, worse than they were, I think, by a considerable margin, considering who they were without. But Bobby, what were your observations of the game itself? What stands out? Well, you're gonna start with Dennis Schroeder, aren't you?
No,
I'm just kidding. We'll get.
I'm actually in his defense tonight.
I know.
On the PL there. The defense was good, although you're playing Taco and company there in Cleveland. Cleveland's thin. They didn't have the bodies to sustain the losses they had going into this one. Still some good players on that side, though. Darius Garland, Ricky Rubio, and Kevin Love, of course, gave them hell too. So you had probably 4 high-level players on Cleveland coming at you offensively, and they denied those passing lanes. They used
you've got Rubio, you've got Markkanen, who's been bad, but he can still do some things.
Oh, he was awful tonight.
He was awful. You have you have CD Osman. It's not a total bust.
They went on some runs with CD and Kevin Love there. They kept it around 14, but this is realistically how much you should have beat them by. You have a lot more of your core talent in here as Boston, and this was a pretty easy game to win against a team that doesn't score that well to begin with here. So the defense was locked down. They turned into transition basketball. Jalen thrived in that area. I thought Jalen was just sensational here. Tatum passed the ball. They got young guys going. Romeo, excellent. Neesmith, few moments here or there. There you go, Sherrod. And then Pritchard continuing his good play. I mean, I think we can talk about, if you want to bring it to Schroeder, Pritchard versus Schroeder at this point.
Well, so that's the thing. So that's where I don't want to, we can go there now. It doesn't really matter.
Let's do it.
Earlier in the year, when I was, kind of not even a few weeks ago, when I was clapping back at like the Schroeder crowd, it was kind of like, what do you expect the guy to be? Like, he's a flawed player. You bring him in there to get buckets. He's not the guy who's going to lead your team and involve all the other players. He's going to drive you nuts by taking shots and dribbling the ball, but that's who he is. And you knew you got him. You were just happy to have a player of his skill level here. And he saved their ass multiple times by being the only guy who could score when everything else had shut down, and they can really attribute 2 or 3 wins directly to his efforts.
Oh, that Milwaukee one? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So there's no doubt about it. But what I didn't like is, if you're going to complain about Schroeder, knowing full well what he is, present an alternative. And at the time, they didn't have one because Pritchard was playing so poorly. There was really no other person you're going to bring in there, especially at a time when Jalen was down and you had no offense anywhere. But when the team's back in full, Schroeder has a role to play, and that role is get to the from the bench, drive that offense, score some points, energy, Vinnie Johnson microwave sort of stuff. Come on in there and do your thing, but you can't be this friggin' inefficient. You can't take every shot when you're out there, and you can't miss every shot when you're out there. In addition to the turnovers and everything, I mean, this was all around just the crowning of crap games for Dennis Schroeder. This was terrible tonight. So when you see this, I get it. All the detractors immediately are going to be like, well, see, he's the worst. He's
Monday
not.
was bad too.
One, I think he's a little hobbled. But two, when he plays like this and you start to see things from Pritchard, which you have over the last couple of games, that makes him look a little bit more competent and usable. You can start to make an argument now about the minutes.
Yeah, and that's what you really want. The one thing I think I want to see more of is like real legitimate competition where guys who, if you're struggling, there's a guy that's ready to take your spot if you're not getting it done.
Was that what Romeo starting tonight was?
I kind of felt that way, yeah. I mean, I love what Romeo did tonight. I mean, and the other guy, we can talk about him later, but Rob, I thought Rob was sensational today.
Yep,
with his
we're going to
overall
get into
game.
Rob too, yep.
Just great flow at both ends of the floor. There was that one sequence defensively, and we talked about Rob, as far as like being just such a quick jumper, where there was a sequence where he contested the shot, was out of position, the guy reloaded, was able to contest that shot, and then the guy just
look at Josue not ready.
That's just
you gotta be ready when you're called upon, like Romeo, like Pritchard, and Josue's just not.
We give him all these examples, and he's just like, what? What?
When you get your opportunity, you got to cash it in. Okay. That's
Absolutely.
What they say. Yeah.
Absolutely. Isaiah Thomas, when he was in Boston, people forget that Marcus Smart had a little ankle boo-boo, and that's how Isaiah Thomas actually started playing. And next thing you know, he's a two-time All-Star.
So let's be clear. There are no trade discussions going on in the NBA right now. If we're going to bring it to that with Schroeder, I mean, these front offices are just scrambling right now.
Enough, people. Like, this is when we're having the conversation, we're talking about selling high on an asset that might actually hurt you if you get rid of him. When you finally get to the point where in your mind you've decided Schroeder sucks now, that's when you start saying trade him. Too late to jump on this bandwagon. You need him to,
it might have
guys,
been
this is a cart. This is the rule with trades. If you're gonna make a trade for somebody, it has to hurt you in order for the other team to want it. Because if it doesn't hurt a little, then the other team doesn't want it at all. There's no such thing as a trade where you're happy with what you got and don't give a crap about what you gave up. That's not how trades work. So the only way Schroeder gets traded is if he plays so well that getting rid of him will actually sting a little bit. You can't just all of a sudden when he starts sucking be like, yeah, I'm all set with him. We can trade him for that first round pick now. You're not getting it if he's playing like this.
And to be fair, I think there's a number of people that have been frustrated with him throughout. There's been a sizable amount, I'd imagine. And listen, I'm not sure a hater. I've deflected this all along. I enjoy what he's brought here. You think of how Smart struggled early on, Tatum, all your main offensive facilitators there, and Schroeder just made it happen with multiple 20-point games at 38. You just don't pick up guys for $5 million who can score 38 points in a game. Doing it efficiently too inside, hitting shots on sequences around the perimeter. He did so many good things for this team, including passing. It's fallen apart here, and that obviously makes it a little bit easier to stomach if you're going to do it. But the reality is you're probably up against getting value for him anyway with the contract situation. Few teams can make a real offer to him after the year. Pure rental. Are there many teams with this big crunch of 500 teams in the middle of the league who are going in on him? Then you might have to sell low here, even if he's playing great, just to get something back. It could even be a pick. But I've said all along, it makes sense. You can't let him walk at the end of the year. And that's what his play has led toward, right? Like, there's a team that's going to probably give him the full mid-level. Maybe there's a team that gives him cap space, but I don't see that. So we'll see where the Celtics goes. They could try to keep him. I'm not totally against that either, and just have him in the rotation during a crazy COVID year. He's one of your few reliable guys in terms of rotation players here. I'm not going crazy about what Pritchard, Nesmith, Langford did this week. Extra opportunity for sure. But let's not forget, those guys, they got some opportunity early, and they struggled immensely in it. Pritchard especially couldn't hit a shot to start this year. So I'm not 100% ready to sell this position out to Pritchard if we're going to go in that direction. But there
I'm
is more
not
of a
at
case
all.
there.
And again, I think some people in the chat are suffering from selective memory with some things. Like at least in this group, I'm a big Dennis supporter, and I think he's been critical to what they've done early. I'd still, even though I actually like what Dennis Schroeder does, would have traded him at his peak value, simply because I don't think this is a year that they're going to contend. So yeah, if he starts playing well again, I'm all for
that New York
thing's
still there though.
No doubt about it, especially if you know there's something there that's going to be a reasonable facsimile, and that's all you're trying to get from Pritchard is, oh, okay, a little bit of offense and a guy I'm not afraid to play, because his minutes over the first 20 games were really, really bad. But the last few times out, a bit more confidence, getting into the lane a little bit better than he was before. That was something that wasn't happening at all early, and the shots falling. So that makes a huge difference. And he's not killing you on the defensive end either. He's even grabbing.
I think he's been good defensively.
He's been good defensively. So you don't have a beef with him right now. I like what we're seeing.
Yeah, I like what we're seeing, but it's still a relatively small sample size compared to what we've seen prior to when he wasn't playing great. I think, Bobby, to your point, he is playing with a greater amount of consistency the last few outings, but I need to see more. I need to see at least another 3, 4, 5 game stretch so I can feel confident that, okay, this is him. This is who he is. This is what we can count on and expect. I don't feel that right now. I just feel he's had a couple of really good games.
Yeah, with a ton of rhythm and room for error out there. 28
Fair enough.
minutes.
I'm going to let Josue's done giving his tour. Josue's done giving his tour, so we're going to let him in here.
Yeah, I actually look. That's a long story, man. I actually saw someone I haven't seen since this whole 2009 is real. But anyways, I'll tell you guys that in a second. But let me guess. I don't know exactly who you guys.
We don't care about catch up with Josue. We don't care about catching up with Josue.
Oh no, you do, Sherrod. You do.
That's for the 60th minute.
This is a legendary story.
That's for the Causeway Street podcast.
You can't make this stuff up, man. It's a fascinating story. All right, but no, without even knowing who you guys are talking about, I'm gonna guess and say it's Peyton Pritchard, right? Bobby, you want to see more of him?
You got it.
That's what you guys talking about? See,
I think it's in play now.
I love what we're seeing now. Yeah, it's definitely in play, but I'm still waiting for consistency here. Like I'm not ready to give him the keys to be the backup point guard.
No, just for background, Josue, all we said is, Schroeder's had a couple bad games, and all of a sudden you're starting to see the trade Schroeder stuff pop up, which we're like, okay, it doesn't work that way when he's bad and you don't want him anymore, whatever. But really more say,
who wants him tonight?
If and when you ever move on, this is the worst of him, and I just don't think he's super healthy. But if and when you move on, if it ever happened, you'd feel better about it if you saw this version of Pritchard. Of course, you need to see consistency, but again, with the kids, you're taking scraps right now, right? Because you want to see just the positive upward movement in their games. You don't need 20 points a night, 20 minutes a night. You just want to see them make the most of their minutes and not look lost or unplayable. You want fewer of those Nesmith in transition moments tonight, or Nesmith Euro step, which I might have laughed harder at that than I have at any comedy this year. Nesmith trying to Euro step and drawing that offensive foul was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. But you want to avoid those, and you want to have some good moments. Romeo, good moments tonight,
Right. And that's exactly what we were talking about the other night, right? Trying to put those guys together and turn them into one solid piece. And if that could be Peyton Pritchard, then that would be exactly what we're looking for between one of those three guys. But I'm just, again, I still think it's early. I also think that Schroeder, maybe the health thing is certainly concerned, but it was sort of a bad luck of a couple of things, right, factored into this, right? There was a couple of, remember those moments when he was sort of getting into it with Tatum, and then they both said that it was all over, but then right then and there. And then
Brown as well.
With Jalen, that's when I started to see the numbers go down a bit. That's when the rumors came out. I don't know. I don't think it's something that he's like saying, you know what?
And he goes to the bench.
I don't think it's
interesting move today.
I don't think it's the thing that it's him saying like, oh, I'm giving up on this team or whatever. But I just feel like it's a bad coincidence of all these events coming together at this time And of course, the next 3 or 4 weeks, we're going to find out what happens because the Celtics are going to try to do something here, some sort of roster shakeup. I don't think the Joe Johnson signing is the end of it here. So we'll wait and see.
Wait, Josue, what are you saying is the bad coincidence? I lost you for a second.
I just think it's a coincidence of him getting into it with Tatum and Brown. All of a sudden his production went down. Then
Dennis?
came, Dennis Schroeder. Then he's unhealthy. It's just been a bad combination thing. And then that's when Celtics fans are like, oh yeah, get rid of this guy. He's a
why do you
problem.
think it was automatic early this year? If Wing was out or your first guy was out, really anybody was out on the Celtics, Schroeder would start. Tonight was the first time all year that they didn't do that. And I haven't seen a quote from Ime on it yet. Just a curious decision because that was without a thought.
Bobby,
Romeo's last start, Schroeder was out with the non-COVID illness, right? So this is the first opportunity that you could have started him in that place. Yeah, okay.
I mean, how often do we see him sit out the entire fourth quarter pretty much? And that's what happened last.
Well, that's happened
2 nights
more
ago.
lately. Yeah.
Yeah, lately, but
he came back in tonight. I was surprised. Even for a couple of minutes, I was surprised.
He's not a closer on this team anymore, for sure.
But you knew 2 nights ago when Pritchard hit those 3 shots that we're not going to see any more Schroeder because you were happy with that. That would have never happened 3 weeks ago.
No, it's a great point. There's a lot of momentum going against them, and like I said a few minutes ago, I don't think there's any trade talks going on in the NBA the way there's G League and COVID crunches going on through the new year. I think that sort of thing will be settled like many other things closer to the deadline, which is now 50 days away. So we're 7 weeks or so out from that deadline. That's a number I'm keeping tally to, as trade obsessed as I am. So this isn't happening in the immediate future, but it is interesting, Josue, as you say, to see him phased out of the roles, even with a fairly limited roster right now that he was in earlier this year. Closing lineups. He's not in against the Knicks. I don't believe he was in against Philadelphia late, if I remember correctly, and then again tonight before he goes back in. Being moved out of the starting lineup, too. It wasn't a matchup thing. The Cavs are a pretty big team out there. You put another wing. Maybe that's sort of what you were trying to gear toward there. You didn't have a second 4, so maybe this is a spot where you would have started Grant if you were fully healthy. So I don't know why they did that. I'm waiting for a quote. I think that's a very telling move that they moved him out of the starting lineup.
Well, no, I think if you're Ime, this is a great way to show people like Langford, Neesmith.
But Langford was
Pritchard,
bad in that game on Monday.
Right, but I think it's also a way of him saying, look, this is your path to getting minutes here, look what happened to Pritchard here, I mean, obviously knocking shots is an obvious thing that helps his chances, but also just being engaged on both ends of the floor. I think he did a tremendous job tonight, and the same thing happened a couple nights ago.
Why do you think he went to the bench, Sherrod?
I think he's just at that point now where there's no stable group or collection of players he can rely on. I think he's just got he's got to reach. He's got to try, experiment. I mean, to me, the one thing I always loved about Brad Stevens was that if you were on the active roster, you knew there was a chance you might play. You absolutely knew that was a chance. And I think that if there's only one thing Ime I would like to see him adopt from Brad, that will be it. The fact that you need your players to feel as though they need because it's going to get called. You know you're going to get a chance to play. I don't think he necessarily does that as well as he should. I think he's understanding as he learns how to be a head coach. You gotta empower your players to feel as though they've got a shot at playing every night. Because there's nothing worse than seeing a guy ahead of you playing like crap and you don't play at all, or you don't play much.
Especially like 30 games into the season. Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think it was, John?
With what? Why it started?
Schroeder sitting, yeah.
I think size played a role into it as well. So sometimes you just have to look at the other side and see what you can get away with there. But in this case, that would be a consideration. But tonight they started 2 point guards. Cleveland did. So I don't think that would have been it, right? Because you didn't have a liability there. I'm saying size generally could be why you wouldn't want to go with the 2 shorter point guard type guys there. If you're so used to double big, and playing the 3 wings allows the switchability and does more things. So the defense and the size would make sense regularly. Not necessarily in tonight's game, but that's why I like it there. I also like it for shooting. I also think just in terms of roles, it's much easier it's much easier to hold your rotations when you're not constantly moving people around. If in your mind you want Dennis Schroeder to lead that bench unit and that bench offense, it makes more sense to plug someone else into the starting lineup and leave them there. And so maybe now that Jalen's back, he's decided I've always wanted Dennis on that second unit, so I'm keeping him there. And that's just going to be that.
Point. Yeah,
I could
so
get
that allows you to set your rotations. It's not as much a demotion as it is this is the role I envisioned for him, and I need to start using him in it. I've got guys out right now that have the ball in their hands a lot in that first unit, and I don't want Dennis out there with Jaylen and Tatum right now. It's going to muck things up. Plus, I still want Marcus to have the ball in his hands because I want him to be out there making plays for those guys too. It's just
him in that role. Yeah.
It's a stranger combination there. So I don't love it when they're all in there together that much. And maybe that's what I would guess. I don't know if he talked about it or not for why he went with it, but we've been talking about it from the beginning. I love, and Bobby, you said he's still very stubborn about the double big thing. And I really do feel that when Al comes back, we're going back to that. And I'm really hoping, I'm hoping the audition of the triple wing lineup lasts a little longer and bears some fruit, because I'd really like to stick with it. And I'd like you want to, I like it in theory, but I also want to see Romeo stay there and continue to grow. He's been the most consistent. I mean, Grant's been great sticking shots, but I do think Romeo has shown a hint of a ceiling that he might be able to get to if he just gets a little bit more regularity, especially with that starting group.
He's been great defensively the last couple of
games. And he's great defensively, yes. And he doesn't look really lost out there at all, but he's terrific defensively. It's always going to keep him on the court.
There was a play against Golden State where Curry, very early in the game, took him inside and out the way Curry does, kind of moving the ball in there and then popping out, where he always catches the ball and nails a three there. Romeo not only stayed with him through that whole process, but batted down a pass, like anticipating the swing to the left there, and almost completely blew up the play. He just has great instincts. He's in the right place out there on that end. He starts to sprinkle in a little offense. I mean, you have a guy play 24 minutes and score 0 points. He's doing something defensively. They wouldn't have just kept running him on Monday, giving you 0 offensively. Like
he keeps guys in front of him extremely well, and we said it even last year when he played in spurts. It was his defense that was keeping him in there. I said last year he was their best on the ball defender. Ahead of Jaylen.
We compared him to Avery.
Yeah, certainly from that wing position. I love what he does. I think he's really confident right now. Right now, the only thing hurting him is he gets called for fouls that are like kind of medium fouls. So he can't play as aggressive as he'd want to, because every time there's a little bit of contact, if he's on a star player, the call doesn't go his way. But he's really up in your shirt. He's really, really playing it tight. Fights through screens, all of that stuff. Quick recovery too. If he does get beat, he recovers quick. He's long. He challenges. He's been outstanding on the defensive end.
Yeah.
And again, he's getting that little in the lane, mid-range sort of stuff. The drive, I want to see him go a little stronger sometimes.
The offense, I think
that's the part of his game that would be really beneficial, because in transition, I mean, he's getting back on defense, but in transition to convert those buckets, I mean, that's where I think he would be, exceptionally useful.
He's a guy you would think, and this is what I like with him in that first unit, because there'd be no attention paid to him. He's got the options of either, as I said, kind of being that corner 3 guy and sit there and, again, it's not lights out, but he's shooting at about 37%, which is respectable. But
on very low volume, though.
Very low volume. But you want to see him cut, run the baseline, all of that stuff. You saw Jaylen found him once underneath for the dunk
2 times in a row. Yeah.
He's got to be the right place, right time sort of guy, because he's going to be the beneficiary of a lot of stuff with the attention going to the other guys if he's playing with that unit. He could really do a lot, filling the lane, cutting, moving without the ball, and then drive when you have it. If you get it and the defense is late coming over, attack, and I think he can do that.
He has playmaking potential too. He can get downhill and find guys. He's done it in very limited opportunities. So that's sort of like a Hayward-esque kind of thing you want to see him do with the starters, the secondary ball handling. He's not going to give you that level of shooting that Hayward did, but you want to see him leverage his dribbling and stuff in there. He doesn't have the burst in the lane either. There's a lot of things that limit him offensively, which is what prevents him, I think, from becoming a shoo-in starter with this group. You'd love to combine Neesmith's potential shooting with his defense, because like they're sort of two polar opposites in that sense right now. But Sherrod was the biggest Romeo stock holder. I did say in some
Come on.
Oh, here we go.
You can't rule out him becoming the constant among the young guys just because of the defense. Like the defense among all these young guys is rock solid and levels above all the other guys. Pritchard, who I think shows some signs, is too small. Grant is too small for big man, too slow for the wing, and Neesmith's just a mess on that end. So Romeo rises above on that end of the floor.
Yep.
But Bobby, and as much as you know, I love Romeo. I love Romeo. The fact that when you start talking about the other guys kind of in his class, they have major flaws, and because of that, Romeo, just by simply being solid,
Default.
looks spectacular. Yeah, he looks spectacular by default.
The bar we have for these guys is so low.
Yeah. I mean, Romeo he's been solid, and that's what they need.
Could you imagine if one of these guys scored 30 one game? We would be like our mouth would be on the floor.
Let me ask you guys this. Is it fair to say that some of the Romeo, a lot of it had to do with being hurt, not being available? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But how much of it is due simply to his face? You know, like his facial, expressions. I honestly wonder how much of it is due to the way he looks. And
we talked about it all the time.
You still see it in the chat. People are like, he doesn't care. He looks asleep out there. Like, does anything physically about what he's doing in the game make you think that he's not trying? He actually looks like he's putting in a fair amount of effort. He's moving his feet. You know, like he's playing really gritty defense. He's grabbing rebounds. He's doing a lot of different things. So I don't see that thing outside of he just has that DJAF face, you know, where he just
and a couple guys have.
He looks a little sleepy, you know, and he's just, you know,
that's what drives Celtics fans crazy.
People said it about Fultz too. They're like, I just don't like his face, you know.
Brandon Ingram has some of that. I mean, Sherrod, there's a lot of guys.
It could be a generational thing, man.
He might just be chill, man. Yeah.
That's just his demeanor.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's okay.
Especially as a young guy.
Yeah, that's I don't have an.
It's superficial. Right. We bang him for it. Tatum gets banged for it. You know?
I think it's overrated. I mean, Ingram's a great player.
Yeah.
No, it is. I mean, I'll never forget when he what was it, most improved player when he got interviewed. He was so like. It seemed like he just woke up. It just seemed like he was out of it. But it doesn't mean he doesn't care about basketball, right? It doesn't mean he doesn't care about becoming a better player. So I don't think that's fair for Romeo.
He got mad. Sherrod and I were at Summer League, and we were talking to him after one of the games, and he was upset that perception's out there about him. He's like, I care about this game a lot. Like, I hate that people think that about me.
Yeah, I don't think that's fair. But this is the year that we're waiting for him to put it all together. And, you know, it's funny because, you know, John, you were saying earlier how he's been solid, and, you know, but what does he do exactly, right? It's like a little bit of everything, but nothing.
What
consistent.
do you do here?
Yeah, so it's like we're seeing flashes of who we think he is, and then we're like, well, when's he gonna put it all together? Because some nights he doesn't even show up at all. So
yeah, it's the jack of all trades, master of none sort of thing. You're right. Here's the thing, though. What I will say. What I'll say happens to these guys sometimes. Some of it's on them. I think some of it is also just simply you've got alphas on this team right now, and it's unless they're going to say, give me the friggin' ball, it's mine. You know, there are going to be games where, I mean, Marcus Smart has 2 games in 2 out of the last 3 games that Jaylen Brown is back. He's got 4 field goal attempts and 7 field goal attempts for 4 total points. 2 out of the 3 games Jaylen's back. You start to lose some touches and you lose some opportunities. So also, if you're afraid of making a mistake and getting yanked and this and that, sometimes you can be out there and not do much. And I do think a lot of times we're like, what did this guy even do here? Again,
I felt that way on Monday. You see the 0 for 3, 0 points, 24 minutes, and it's hard to pull something from that.
Yeah.
You don't want to see a guy have that kind of night when he gets that kind of minutes. It just says a
But
lot
again,
about his offense.
Marcus had 3 games ago a really low output game in terms of points, but an overall outstanding game on the defensive end and with the assists. So Romeo again is doing it with his defense. Again, there's no question that the coaches, both Brad and Ime, Brad threw him in there the second he was ready to go last year because there was something in him he wanted to tap into, and it was definitely on the defensive end of things. So he's the guy that they're trusting with those types of minutes, certainly in the Romeo versus Neesmith debate. But I want to see it. I'd like to see an extended stint in the starting lineup because, again, in that second unit, what happens? Everybody just watches Dennis dribble the ball. I don't know.
Then you mix in Dennis and Josh off the bench with potentially Horford. That's a good
and ISO Joe. Yeah,
it's a Josue, where are you at on the Johnson?
He's a bucket.
The Johnson edition.
I love it. Give him a shot. He's a bucket. It's a message for everyone. I mean, he's got a great story in itself. I mean, his career alone. He wasn't.
I
ISO
forgot
Joe
he
out
wore
the
Max's
gate.
number.
It took him a while. I know. Yeah, it's funny. That's one of the first things that crossed my mind when it happened.
You don't got to give him a shot. He's going to take it. So let's just kill this idea. You need to give him a shot. Joe already has the clip loaded, ready to fire. So
they need guys like that. Exactly.
I know some
fearlessness, experience.
I know some people who love.
That's Ime's new emergency button. I need a bucket. Damn it! Come on, Joe, get in there.
I have some friends from the.
They'll smash that button.
I have some friends from the Hawks years who loved his game. I wasn't the biggest fan in the world. I'm more of a passing, movement, defense kind of guy, but he was exceptional as a scorer on that team, and he killed the Celtics in certain spots through those years. That intense series was that 2008 that the Hawks just gave them hell and almost beat them round one. Horford on the other side, young in his career.
Oh, he torched the Celtics that series, yeah.
I believe Teague was a young player back then. Those Hawks teams gave you a lot of trouble back then. So it is cool to see it come full circle. Again, this G League rush is a really, really cool story for the next month here. That created a fun moment, atmosphere at the Garden, and what was just going to be kind of a dreadful game, missing a bunch of the best players on the floor. This is like some awesome silver lining to just a dreary time.
I want the entire 2001 draft class back. I want Kedrick Brown. I want Forte. I want every one of them.
No, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't. You know what the Celtics need right now? If we're talking about in terms of that 2001 scope, they need a trade piece like Joe Johnson to flip for 2 pieces like Tony Delk and Roddy Rogers in 2002. Like that's what's missing. That's the piece we've been talking about. None of these big blockbuster deals. No, a low grade deal like that where you got one solid piece and you're bringing in a couple of veterans in return that are on the right side of 30.
Let's go back to making all the wrong moves.
Hey, listen, Bobby. It was before your time. That team was two wins away from going against the Lakers in the finals.
I feel like that was
Rogers and Delk were good for a minute, but that was about it.
They need 2 weapons that are good for a minute, John. That's the thing.
Why were they trading Johnson, Chauncey Billups, like all their high level young guys early in their careers? It was
because the man named Rick Pitino's out of his mind.
Rick Pitino lost his freaking mind.
Yeah. That's the shit I had to live through. I mean, the tail end of it, at least.
The whole thing, it was a strange era. Really strange era.
Oh, man.
Let's hope we're not entering another one.
That's why I think it's just so funny to see Joe back, man. I'm like,
it's been a strange few years here for sure.
I'm like, you're the piece this team needs to flip.
Let's do
Rob. Not literally, but
we're kind of burying Rob a little bit here.
I want to talk Rob. We're going to talk Jalen as well. This was an all around. What's funny is I was getting annoyed with Rob's goofiness again early in the game.
You were upset in the first quarter.
He was driving me nuts again because he's just kind of doing that sloppy Rob, like, not looking. And I got so annoyed with him. And then the time he dribbled and he just tried to pass. And, I don't know. I was losing it. And then all of a sudden, he kind of discovered his powers, and everything started going well.
Can I call that steal in the lane?
I'm about to die. I got to get my charger. You guys go.
Can I call that steal in the lane? Run out with the Euro-esque step there. And the best play of his career.
What's so funny is while he's doing it, he's thinking should I just keep going? The whole time he's like, can someone come get the friggin' ball? And he's like, I guess not. And he just kind of kept going, That was
Then
unreal.
He just levitates to
Bing,
the rim
bing,
like it's nothing.
bang, Awesome.
Yeah.
That was rivaled by Cantor's friggin' dunk.
Oh my!
That I had to
Lord.
rewind. I had to rewind. I was like, that was Tatum, right? And I rewound. I was
We're
like,
having some
oh
fun
my
again.
God, it was Cantor.
Of all people, dunking on somebody too.
Oh my
Tatum.
God.
Tatum gave the pass. That was beautiful.
Freedom.
Let me just say right off the top, these last 2 weeks, it has been an awful 2 seasons of watching this team. There's been some fun the last week or two here. Like the young guys stepping up, some great plays, big performances. I've loved these last 2 weeks. I've had fun watching these games, and Rob playing this way is going to be a big part of the team, not only meeting their potential, but being exciting and rising up Zach Lowe's league pass rankings, because they had to be down in the bottom 10 the way these last 2 years have gone with all the isolation and everything. The ball movement's better. It's no mistake that they find him more often in a game where the ball movement is ticked up. He has certainly, I think, done a good job of making the most of things, offensive rebounding and all that. So then when he actually gets more opportunities to catch lobs and do some other things here, he has a vintage night, maybe a night as good as he's ever had. Like John, I've been pushing back against your disappointment with his season. Like I think he's been more sustainable when he's gotten the opportunities. He's been more efficient, and I think he's still Rob. Like he's just a more refined, concentrated version of him. It's not the big flashes you saw a year ago. He's just having good games now as a whole.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's relative to my expectations, which are admittedly, possibly unreasonably high. But I really believe there's and I kind of made like a Neo in the Matrix kind of parallel on Twitter. I honestly don't think he gets that he's the one. I don't think he fully understands his powers and abilities, and he's only sometimes doing them, and sometimes just he still has too many moments as a passenger, as opposed to Rob, you can do.
I don't think that's his fault though.
Rob, you can do so many things if you just someone unlocked it. I don't know if it's putting him in a gym for friggin' a month straight with KG, or a different offseason regimen or something like that, or Ime saying we're involving him in the offense in these ways, but. There's still he's gone leaps and bounds year over year, and there's still there is so much untapped potential here, because you see it in flashes, so it exists, and then the next time you see it completely disappear and you're perplexed by it.
So I wrote about the Celtics offense earlier in the week, and there were some startling stats on his involvement just between passes to him and pick and roll plays. Now, the pick and roll plays are only going to be plays where he takes a shot or it leads to a shot. So even the pass outs in those situations might not count. But I found that he gets one pick and roll dive a game, between 1 and 2, which is just criminal when you think about the efficiency of those plays. He's in the 80th percentile of pick and roll rollers, but he only gets 2 a game. He only gets about, I think, 7 passes a game total. I got to find the exact number on that one. But the usage rate for him is just staggeringly low for how efficient he is.
Yeah, it is. It's the usage is crazy low. And that's why, again,
he receives 17 passes a game.
I know. There's some times where he's got 2 field goal attempts and you're you want to say, is Rob not being assertive enough? And then you realize he just never has the ball in his hands, never has the ball. But then again, you see those times where he picks it up on the, at the elbow, and his shoulders aren't even square to the basket. He's never an offensive threat. He's facing sideways, looking for the handoff, and then to go kind of roll or, or peel off, or, so he's not catching and squaring and making himself an offensive threat. He's not. There's nothing.
We knew
in the
that
post,
about him, though.
Yes, but like I said, he has enough of a stroke to be able to threaten that elbow jumper. It's a free throw. If people give it to you, you take it.
He hasn't been good there either.
But he doesn't even look. He doesn't even look for it.
The free throw shooting is worrying me, because that's a way teams could continue to neutralize him. I think he was 1 of 5.
I think it's a blip because
right.
we've seen him, and I don't see anything mechanically wrong with it. I just think it's you know,
All
it's
right, yeah, he that was the Golden State one where he was really bad in that regard, and then I think it continued against. He didn't play in the Philly game, so it must have been that back to back with New York and Golden State there where that fell apart. Listen, you want to start to see those areas you described there come into play, right? Because you're correct. He did pick and pop last year. He did do certain things on the dribble and run offensive sets, high dribble handoff action, a few things outside of just basic pick and
right.
roll where he got involved in that regard. In today's game, I thought he had a nice offensive rebound where he actually went one dribble and finished on the other side of the basket. He never goes up on putbacks. So that's something. That's something there. Yeah. So this is more of the ilk of the high upside kind of game. You want to see regularly from him.
It's the strangest thing. I'd love to see the numbers, considering how the Celtics rebounding numbers have been pretty good this year. But you've got a couple of guys who are pretty good on the offensive glass, and Ennis and Rob. Rob won't put it back up, and Ennis can't put it back up. Like between the two of them right now, the amount of wasted opportunities with their offensive rebounds. One skill, and go ahead.
I can only imagine Cantor's numbers in that area and his freedom. I'm going to pull him up real quick.
Oh, my God. But specifically on putbacks, on offensive rebounds, it's atrocious, it feels like. And that he used to gobble that stuff up. One area that's incredibly underrated with Rob that I wish maybe there is a stat, and I don't know, but the tap outs, the controlled taps on balls that he knows he can't corral as a full rebound, but he tips to people to get the rebound those
are the tricky ones. Do those always count for him, or
that's an elite skill? He sometimes does it as a control.
Him and Tatum did a little thing in there like that at one point tonight. So
he had one the other night that was like a pass, but it's some people will just keep the ball alive in a tip drill and whatever happens. His are controlled tips to people. It's really, really impressive if you pay attention to it. He does that a lot, several times a game, it feels like, where he goes up and taps it to somebody, recognizing this is the best way we're going to control this ball rather than me trying to muscle it away from the guy next to me.
So Ennis's numbers aren't as bad as I thought they were. 1 point per possession, which is fine. 54% shooting in that spot, which is better than I thought it was. He does actually put quite a few of them up, but that's only the 42nd percentile for a guy who grabs a ton of them. That should probably be better. Rob's is 58%. Which is low for him, shooting inside there. 1 point per possession, 2. He's about league average in that area.
Considering he shot 70-something% last year from the field, that is low.
Tatum's on the boards too this year, which is great. He's right there with Rob in terms of offensive rebounds a game. Al never gets them, but he finishes all of them pretty much. So it's a weapon for them. They'll definitely utilize that a ton.
Other minor improvements, not just talking about Rob here. We mentioned Tatum. One thing I've noticed, he has gotten a lot smarter and a lot more slippery and clever in his drives recently. And again, he didn't have a great shooting night tonight. So, but I've noticed a lot of times the way he's positioning and controlling his body and either Euro stepping or just kind of switching hands. He's ducking under. He's getting the shot off much more cleanly without doing that foul hunting scoop that has a low percentage chance of getting in. His shots now have a high percentage, a chance of getting in, but they're a lot more, like I said, he's just gotten a lot more
adding
clever.
The left hand a little bit. I mean, that's something Brown's always had on him.
He's gotten clever around the rim. Hey, Sherrod, welcome back.
Yeah, he's definitely more balanced and in control in there. There was a nice post-up play down the stretch of this game, too, where he just kind of spun and glided in there for a finish. That's always been the big weakness in his game, I felt like. And I did send you that chart in the group chat, John, the other day. He's top 10 in terms of guys going to the rim. He always goes to the rim. That's not even a question anymore.
Jalen.
Drive more. No, Jayson. He constantly drives to the rim at this point in his career, well over 10 times a game. So we used to complain about that. That's our question. Now it's
after that having gone down every year of his career, so it had to tick up a little bit because it was we were in a bad way there. Sherrod, we were talking a little bit about Rob and his evolution. If you wanted to add anything to that, just whether or not like what he is versus what he can be, how far he is from his potential, and then we just got a little bit into Tatum, but you can go in any direction you want here. If that is your real name.
I don't know if he's got our audio.
No, Sherrod, you got us? Yeah.
Yeah, I got you. Rob's playmaking. That's what really jumps out to me in this game, and frankly, something that I think as time moves on, we're going to see that part of his game evolve and become more impactful. We know he can score. We know he can play above the rim. We know he can defend, but can he make guys around him better? And at his position, that is finding guys, being that playmaker, similar to what we see Al Horford has done for years. This was a great example of his potential in that regard.
Yeah, and if he's gonna reach that Horford level, just things we haven't seen from him at all got to improve. Like it's nice to see things we never see from him in this one. The low post dribble where he actually gets the ball down low and doesn't have to throw it out. Dribbling on the fast break, being in control in that spot. That's something we never ever see from him. And this year, I haven't seen a lot of creation from him as a whole. Maybe in chaotic spots where the ball is getting away from him and he makes something out of nothing. But there hasn't been a ton of dribble handoff action and just all these other things that made him such a great high end assist guy in the past. And the turnover is still an issue. Like he's got to get rid of the play where he just throws it to the other team going the other way. That was there tonight as well. We know the Clippers game was the low end of that this year. So with higher usage, I think much of his game has translated and turned into a steady player in the spot. But now you got to start to see him try different things that he never ever tries if you want to see him round out his game, not just be a pick and roll and low post defense kind of guy who can switch a little bit. You want to see him add things like Jokic did, like Horford did, like these bigs who just evolved from being one thing early in their career and rounded it out to be an all-around player. And that's the only way, John, he's going to become the third piece next to Jalen and Jayson. Otherwise, he's just going to be a role guy, a high-end role guy.
When I talk about third piece, I'm more saying like I believe that there's that he it could be this kind of unicorn for you, not like a traditional like, oh, okay, here's my big three. I'm just saying that what the value he's going to bring that will always show in the numbers at the end of the day is going to be in this insane net rating and his PER and his plus minus and how good they are with him on the floor, but not necessarily show up in the stats that you're going to be like, that's the clear-cut third star. I'm saying his play elevates all around them. At his best, we've seen that. Their best units have Rob on the floor always. And so him continuing to evolve, doing more, and the attention that he draws, with his ability to roll, and then some of the other things he does with his playmaking just creates all around just a better unit on the floor at all times. So I just thought we'd see another level of that. I didn't think all of a sudden he's going to be friggin' Moses Malone down there, or Kevin McHale with post-up moves. It's just not in his DNA. That's not who he's going to be. I actually don't think he's got a lot of comps because, he's
Capella.
Yeah, maybe, but he's just not traditional, in a lot of the things that he does. He really is a unique player.
Yeah, he's better defensively than Capella, and he can pass more than him.
And he can pass. It's totally different. It's we haven't seen, I don't have a good comp for him. Everyone's like, I know Sherrod likes the, what's his name? He lit us up. JaVale McGee.
Oh, okay.
And we've heard DeAndre Jordan, which I think is the worst comp because Jordan's bad at everything except for jumping.
That is true. That is true.
Well, let's be real. Rob's bad at a lot of things right now too, outside of the areas he's great at. So there's got to be an attempt. You've said this, John. There's got to be some effort at improving in those other areas, a willingness to do those things, pick and pop, putting it on the floor around the basket, maybe flashing a post move here or there, running the offense for a set or two a game, being able to pass out of rebounds. Like there are some basic things that he still needs to really clean up, but the things he's excellent at, rebounding, finishing, diving, setting screens too, I'd add to the list. He set better ones tonight. He's been a mess setting screens lately. I didn't send you a video of kind of like an off-ball screen where Brown was in the corner and he was just setting a screen on nobody, kind of looking around like, where am I supposed to be? So like there's so much he has to work on, but the good thing is he's so good even without all those things.
No, Greg. Not Tony Batiste.
Someone said Drummond. I almost threw up in the chat. I don't know what these people are talking about.
Yeah.
Ayton,
quick,
like a fully fleshed out version of him already.
I want to give very quickly two programming notes. One, support our sponsors, please. Among those, LinkedIn. Go to linkedin.com/garden. Post a job for free. This is the number one place to go find employees, and that's a hard thing to do nowadays. And LinkedIn obviously has the market cornered here in terms of the best place to go out there and find talent for your job. There's over 770 million people who subscribe to LinkedIn who are checking this site daily. So obviously, if you need to hire and, hey, I don't want to pay for it, great. Do the first one for free. See what you get out of it. It's on us. LinkedIn.com/garden. Head on over there and post your first job. And then, of course, always, we want to tell you about calm.com/garden. Number one sleep and meditation app. Receive 40% off a Calm premium subscription.
We need Calm this week. I mean, everything going on, it is stressful. It just kind of, just hearing about all the stuff going on stresses you out. Like, I've needed Calm more than ever before this last week.
I was walking down, I was on Newbury Street today and took the fam, and we're just walking around, taking a little Christmas vibe. And you just, like normally it just feels like it's a cheery time. And I'm there with like cute kids running around and like, I don't get one look, one smile, head down, stressed faces. Everybody is freaking fried right now, man. So yeah, you think you don't need it, you need it. Calm.com/garden. Sleep, at least get your sleep. If you're going to be stressed out in every waking hour of the day, at least be rested. Okay. Calm.com/garden, 40% off a Calm premium subscription. You probably don't realize how much you need this right now, but you do. We all do. We're stressed out. We're heading into the holidays here. It's been another long freaking year. So everybody, chill and get your sleep and get after it. Last thing, and I never do this, but I just will solicit, guys, if you're watching this video, if you're not a subscriber, subscribe, please, to our YouTube channel. And if you're watching and you like it, give us a like. Give us a like. And if you don't, it's very clear that you don't from your comments. I know who you are too. But jump on in here. Jump on in. Sorry, Sherrod, I had you muted there. Jump on in. Give us a like, please. Subscribe if you can. Sorry, there was some background there. You're good. And if not this, depending on which channel you're watching from, our main YouTube channel, also Celtics All Access, where you get a lot of our breakdown videos, a lot of the stuff Bobby Manning's going to do, either breaking down film.
I had a good one from Monday after the 76ers game on the floor, mid-court. We're out there more often. Sherrod and I did one on Saturday night. There's some good stuff on All Access.
It's really good stuff, in-depth stuff on All Access, so make sure you check that out. Plus, you get all of our podcasts, where we have a whole fleet of them there. So if you're not familiar with it, you can catch a ton of some of the best, if not the best, Celtics podcasts in town, in addition to some outstanding Patriots content as well. So make sure you check us out there. Guys, any other thoughts on this game or anything we have going forward here? Oh, you know what? Everyone gets really mad when we don't talk about it, but we definitely have to. No, I mean, it's we do. We're guilty. We take Jaylen.
Listen, Jaylen's my favorite Celtics player.
We take Jaylen for granted, and when he has good games, we're like, yeah, because you expect that. But it's been a weird year for him. So in a normal 80-game year, when he drops a game like this, you'd be like, okay, so it was a Jaylen night, and then tomorrow is a Tatum night, and then blah, blah, blah. But it's 3 games back. Let's talk about how he looks physically. Sherrod, you're there. Bobby, you've been there. You guys have been at the Garden. You're watching him move. Do you see anything? And again, it was obvious how poorly he was moving the first stint. Obvious. Whether you were on the court or TV, his expression, his everything in between, you could tell he was just stressing over it, even if he wasn't actually grabbing at it. How's he moving to you guys right now?
I think he's moving decent, but part of his biggest problem, I think, is more mental than physical at this point. I do think that there's some mental scar tissue that he's kind of breaking through and getting past, because this is an injury that has affected him twice, at least 2 times, to where he's missed significant time. And that has a way of causing some some second guessing of your body when you're out there. So I think Jaylen, what he's finding is that as the game goes on, his body is saying, this is okay. You can be the Jaylen before all this stuff was happening. Do that. And that's why I think as the more we watch Jaylen play, the better he's going to consistently be in the latter stages of play than he is at the start of games.
Yeah, I like the movement, especially compared to where he was. It was a disaster, those 5 games where he came back early. You just looked at the efficiency. That's something I've come to just expect flat out from him is 50% or above, nailing threes at a high rate, scoring in a short amount of time, like 16 and 14 minutes to start this one. I had a friend text me who doesn't watch the Celtics every game but went to this game, and she was like, man, I didn't even realize Jaylen had 16 after the first. Like, how'd that happen? And that happens all the time. He just gets going, and you're like, holy crap, he has 10 already in the first. Oh, he's got 20 at halftime. He is one of the most efficient guys when he's right I've ever seen at the wing position. I remember he kind of broke it was 18 for 22 last year. He had that level of a game, which I think was stood up among some of the most efficient games ever for a guy at his position. He is just the tone setter on this team in many ways to me. You're starting to see him on the ball more often. He's doing some things with Rob in the lane. He's getting them out on the break again and again. You think about the pace issues that Ime commented on pregame. Jaylen just solves them by being out there. They play faster when he's out there. He makes them get out on the run. You're not going to play slow if he's healthy, right? On the ball.
Yeah, and this isn't an opportunity to rag on Tatum because I like a lot of what Tatum's done lately, just in terms of the evolution of his game and other aspects beyond just scoring, even though I think there are elements of his scoring that have improved as well. We talked about the stuff at the rim, but it is freaking maddening when Tatum, who's been more aggressive on the boards, pulls down a defensive rebound and just turns and starts to walk it up the court. I don't understand that. Like, what level of basketball have you ever been taught to grab a defensive rebound and start to walk? Ever. You either run yourself or you pass it up the floor to someone, and
they were flying tonight
and they run. So yes, you're right. Brown, that's much more his mentality. If they're getting it off a miss and he goes and you're keeping the defense on their heels. Tatum just gets those boards and walks, and he just can't get that out of his head.
He's been better. He's been better this
year. That's the one thing that still drives me crazy. He's so deliberate, after grabbing a defensive board and turning it up. And you're right. You do see Jaylen helps them do it. They are, generally speaking, from a pace of play perspective, not one of the faster teams.
Can I say this too? And I've had conversations with other fans at this point. I've looked at the trade machine. I've given this more thought than I ever have before this year, just given where they're at and the trade value that we've talked about. They should never, ever trade Jaylen for anything. Like, they have to keep him. They have to. He's just too good. You can't trade a guy. We've talked about selling low for him in the pieces. That would be a disaster just in terms of value. I don't think there's 1-for-1 trades out there. Like, at this point, the Lillard one, I'm kind of out on Brown being the guy in the middle of that trade. Simmons, certainly, I'm not swapping them out. Sabonis, no. Like, who around the league would you? Towns,
That's the point.
I'm not no on Towns for him.
Everything is a lateral move unless you get pieces.
He's too good. Everybody's begging for this guy. I had Justin Rowan on Dome Theory, and he's like, can we get Jaylen to Cleveland? Please, yeah. We'll give you anything.
I know. Well, I mean, I think it's silly. Did you guys see the Bleacher Report suggested trade today for Sabonis?
Oh, for Boston?
Yeah.
I didn't see it, no.
It was Smart, Grant, Romeo, and one first rounder for Sabonis.
You're going to need more picks than that.
For sure. I don't see that.
Here's the thing about that.
What's in that for the Pacers? What's in it for them?
So I was thinking about this, and
two younger players, a first-round draft pick, and Smart. So you're not necessarily you're not going into full.
That's the key, because they don't want to do a full rebuild.
You're not doing full rebuild. You're kind of rolling on the fly. It's the right concept for a package, wrong players. Which would be a veteran, some younger pieces who aren't as mature yet, and then a pick. It makes sense if Romeo was a different guy and Grant was a different guy. If those younger players were ones who might have, all-star pedigrees 2-3 years from now, yes, you could do a deal like that. But you can't do it for those guys. Yeah.
Would you trade for Turner?
Yeah.
We've been down this road, but when you go the other direction there.
I
He
don't
might
know
be
what
cheaper.
I don't know what that does for you.
Passing big, guy who can run some offense, who can shoot from that position, and defensive
I
player of the year
I'm
caliber
fine.
defense.
I wanted him when the alternative was letting Hayward walk for nothing. I don't want to give up stuff for him, honestly. Like when we wanted him before,
Right.
it was because Hayward's leaving anyway. So you're going to get nothing versus something. So I'll take the something versus the TPE, which ended up yielding nothing. And again, you don't know. You kick that TPE can down the road, you've still got it. So that 17 mil still might be
I think
something.
there's a deal here. There really is, I think, with where these two teams are at. It's going to be in the off season, though, when Brogdon's in play, when teams are going to be more willing to flip picks on draft night and everybody knows where they're at. I think there's been a deal here. Like, listen, how many shows did we do on the Hayward Turner thing? And just how many different ways could these teams have helped each other back then? I think they're going to circle back to each other when the time's right here. It's just not going to be during this year.
Perhaps.
I can see that. I could see that.
I could see it. And I do think this notion that I don't believe the Celtics are going to sell out for whatever happens this year. I think any deal, there's no urgency because I don't think they're like,
I think it's going to be a tough year to make trades.
You make in-season deals if you're a team like the Celtics for two reasons. Or for any team, you make in-season deals if you think you're a player away or this is the best moment, most advantageous moment to pull the trigger on it. And with the Celtics, it isn't necessarily in season. You might wait till the off season, but you do have all of those TPEs that expire by June. So if you're going to use
that one actually goes late, doesn't it? Because they did that free agency.
No, they're like
in
May,
August.
June, and they're. I think you have one in the actual off season, but two are during the season. So
when did free agency start? It was August, right?
Yeah.
So the Fournier ones,
but
August,
it's normally
it
won't be. Well, when did they start the season this year?
October.
Did they start normal
October.
time? So it'll be in July then, because it's right around 4th of July.
They'll have time to do it while the off season's going. I'm fairly confident about that. Sometimes they move it if the season changes dates, just to make it proportional. But if it's just a year from the date, then it'll be August, because that's when they actually did that trade. But we'll see. I don't know that exactly.
I had the dates somewhere, but that is the concern that you do have. There is.
Well, you can do that in the year, right? Like pick up the salary. Hopefully, it's a multi-year guy rather than a Fournier. You can do the Schroeder thing. You can do those in one deal together. It's just going to be expensive if you're taking a lot of money back for Schroeder. We'll see. There's stuff they can do in year. I think the big blockbuster everybody's waiting for, especially with all the teams packed in the middle this year, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. And all this COVID stuff that emerged, I don't see a ton of action this year. Like, I think all this stuff has thrown it for a wrinkle. The new playoff format where 20 teams get in, as well as the COVID situation in the league. Like, we'll see. We'll see where it goes. 50 days. Start the countdown.
Start the countdown. All right. We are going to wrap. Josue just popped in, so we're going to let him have a final word here. I know he's having some technical difficulties. It was noisy as F out there.
Everything. And then it's noisy again as soon as they quiet down. Sorry about that, guys. But
that's all right.
Look, I just, to your point, John, I caught like the last minute and a half. Look, this team, they're not going to get this piece that's going to make them a championship team all of a sudden. But what they can do is consolidate. And obviously, you got to use that TPE. You have to use it obviously before it expires. And I don't think Brad Stevens in his first year of managing this team, this thing, I don't think he drops the ball in that way. I think that's the last thing he wants to do. He hit a couple of I don't know, we're gonna call them home runs, but solid hits throughout his first offseason. And it's time to see what he's gonna do midseason, before that deadline. So we'll wait and see.
I saw somebody throw out Jeremy Grant in the chat. When we were talking about him last year, we were coming from the position of like, why would they ever trade that guy in a million years? Things are so different there this year, and now that it actually seems like they're considering something like that, possibly, that's one you circle back on, right?
It was,
like,
but
that guy is awesome.
But year one and how much he was about Detroit and Detroit was about him would have been really bad. He was an untradeable piece last year, because like it was a big deal for him and for them, and for him to be their centerpiece. And there's no way they were going to turn around and drop him in a year.
He's out 6 weeks now, so that pushes pretty close to the deadline. And Detroit's 4-29 or something ridiculous like that. they are going to be selling some guys here close to the deadline, I would guess.
Yeah. The only question is whether or not, and you're right. I think only the Tice TP expires during the season, and the others do go into the off season. So those are the bigger ones. You have flexibility. They're not going to. If you were a player away, I mean, I don't think they want to go deeper into the tax to use that Tice TP, but they'll use it if they have to.
Every dollar is going to be taxed heavily for them bringing guys
Heavily.
on.
It might not be worth it. All right, guys, we're going to wrap Christmas. We're going to do a show. Some of us, some people, it's going to happen.
Yo,
It's
we're gonna
early
do
in the
an
day.
issue from the Pavon household. I will be here. Let's do it.
Yeah. So there'll be some show in some capacity. Attendance is not mandatory for all the Garden Report people, but at least a couple.
Sherrod scratches his head.
at least a couple of us are going to be here.
Sherrod, take the night off. You're working hard.
Yeah,
Yo, for
exactly.
real. Go enjoy the fam, man. Chill out.
Um,
He's already gone. Take care.
It's great playing on Christmas. Imagine if they were home, we'd all be schlucking in there.
Oh man, those are tough, man.
I mean,
Who knows what's going to happen?
Very
It's gonna be
tough.
nuts.
Those Wizards games.
I've worked a lot of Christmases. I've worked a lot of Thanksgivings. It is what it is, man. You know.
But at least that
But
Wizards
they're
game,
tough.
you know, it was like a 5 o'clock start, right? It wasn't too early, it wasn't too late. So, but yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Once again, shout out to LinkedIn. As we said, we are back on Christmas. We will say to everyone again, thank you very much for hanging out all season long. Last couple of years, it's always been fun. We are going to, as we said, be back on Christmas. For those of you that don't join, and we totally understand if you don't, Merry Christmas to all of you. Hope you enjoy the holidays. But we'll just keep bringing you shows throughout, the holiday season here into the new year as the Celtics try to get above 500. Let's see if we can do it this time. What do you think, guys?
Is Giannis playing? We'll see.
Wow.
Let's see.
How the bar has fallen.
All I want
Giannis-
for Christmas is a team one game above 500.
Giannis and DiVincenzo, who hasn't played in a long
Just
time,
one
will
game
be
above.
Your wish shall be granted, John. You shall get your wish.
But
Yeah.
will they stay there, guys? Will they at least stay there for a bit? We'll see.
Giannis
See,
and
now,
Divin-
Josue, you being greedy. Now you're being greedy, Josue.
Giannis and DiVincenzo 11 days out from COVID on the 25th. So we'll see. That's a toss-up there.
That'll be there. Well,
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see. But 3 days, you might get some Celtics back too.
We'll see.
We'll see. But until then, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for hanging out. As we said, please subscribe. Please like it. And we'll see you guys on Christmas. Take